following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
We're honored to have the mayor here with us this morning. In case anybody didn't notice, there is a general election coming up in a few weeks, and we also wanted to remind everyone that by October 26th, employers are required to post information and notify all employees of their voting rights and possible access to paid time off to vote. We will be sending around more information about these requirements, and in the meantime, you can visit our website, www.promotethevote.nyc, to learn more. Very, very important to encourage everyone to go out and vote. It is again an honor to welcome back our mayor to ABNY, where he has chosen to make many important speeches about the city and its future. We want to thank the administration and the mayor to continue to make this city a better place to live, work, and visit. And under the mayor's leadership, New York City's crime rate continues to go to historic lows. And this summer it was New York's safest in more than 20 years. We thank you, Mr. Mayor and Police Commissioner, and the entire city and NYPD. You can give the mayor a nice applause. The mayor also recently made a major announcement of $150 million to reinvest in our city's green spaces, with funding for an anchor park in each of the boroughs, a further equitable distribution of resources for everyone to participate in. He has made tremendous strides in education for our city's children, with both the Universal Pre-K program and Computer Science for All, which I'm sure you'll hear about later. We look forward, Mr. Mayor, to hearing more about these programs and your vision for education. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bill, Rudin, for all you do for the city. Thank you, ABNY. Thank you to everyone who's here today from so many important parts of our city, elected officials and labor leaders, business leaders, community leaders. A special thank you to all the members of my administration who do so much so well to serve this city. And a special thank you, we have a couple of students here from the Math, Engineering, and Science Academy and from the Broome Street Academy. Let's give them a round of applause. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to talk to you about what is my true passion, which is our vision for our schools. We call it equity and excellence for all. And I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about it, but first, I want you to see a video that I think summarizes it powerfully and gives you a feeling of what we're trying to achieve here. Let's see the video.
The sun rises over the city. 1 million+ students rise with it. Parents and caregivers in 5 boroughs with the same dream. A school their child can succeed in. For too long, we've had good schools and bad schools. We don't accept that anymore. We're shaking the foundations. Equity and excellence for all. Equity, a great school for every child in every zip code. Excellence, education for 21st century success. Our vision, our challenge, our goal. It's already touching students at every level. Universal pre-K, focus on 2nd grade reading, middle school algebra, college visits, and career counseling. And we're seeing the difference. Graduate graduation rates at record highs, test scores up in every school district, a 35% drop in school crimes. But it's not about programs or statistics. It's about transforming the nation's largest school system. It's about a child with a dream. It's about the American dream. Students succeeding because of the content of their character, not because of the numbers in their zip code. The sun rises over the city. 1 million+ students rise. Equity and excellence for all.
That says it so powerfully. I want everyone to understand this is what we came here to do in this administration. We came here to fundamentally change our schools. We came here to uplift every one of our children. This, for us, is the most fundamental mission. My children are products of the New York City public schools. My wife is a product of public education. I'm a product of public education. So many people in this room who have succeeded and do so much for this city are products of our extraordinary school system. And we have so much more to do to make it what it should be. And on the opening day of school, I had one of those moments that summarized it all. I got to walk along with Charlene. We got to walk a young 7th grader named China to school. China's parents are immigrants from Panama. They came here looking for a better life. China is an energetic, bright young girl, 7th grader at IS 392 in Brownsville, a neighborhood that's had more than its share of troubles. China believes in herself, and we are going to do all that it takes to help her achieve. And I'm walking her to school, very first day of school, walking along with her. And I turned to China and said, "What's your dream?" And she said, "I'm going to be the valedictorian." And it was so powerful to me. She said it, she was beaming. She said it with confidence. And it gave me right there just a moment, a perfect moment of clarity about all we're here to do. Because China goes to school in Brownsville, and Brownsville needs so much more help. And we don't accept the idea that a school in Brownsville should be any worse than a school on the Upper East Side. And China needs to know that she will get the very finest education at the highest standards so that she can thrive in today's world. She has the confidence, she has the belief in herself, she has the hope. It's up to all of us to provide the rest. And in that moment, I saw all the possibilities, and that's why this concept for us, this is our North Star. We don't accept, as you heard in the video, we do not accept the notion of the quote-unquote good school and the quote-unquote bad school. And this is like a folktale in every neighborhood of this city to this day, and has been for not only decades, for generations. That idea passed from person to person of a school is good for their children or not good for their children. How on earth was that ever an acceptable reality in the greatest city in the world? We don't accept it. And it may sound on first blush utopian, but I assure you it's both morally and practically necessary to end once and for all the notion that some schools are built for success and others are not. And we also don't accept any notion of dumbing down the standards, because we need high standards for our children. Everyone in this room understands the demands of the 21st century workplace. We need our kids to make it through school, to graduate with a degree that means something, to be on the pathway to higher education or career in a way that actually works for them, to be challenged to the highest standards. If we're not challenging them to the highest standards, we're not doing our job, and they simply will not succeed later on. And then that will be a burden on the entire society, let alone them and their families. So this is why this phrase captures something. It's just words, of course, it's a slogan, but it captures something much bigger. The goal is to literally end the division that we have known throughout all our lives, that concept of the school you go to and the quality of school so often linked to the zip code that you live in. That a school arbitrarily may be one of the blessed ones or one of the damned ones. We don't accept that. We know that's not consistent with the values of this city or this country. We believe all schools need to be lifted up. We think it's an incredibly difficult task. I want to be very clear, incredibly difficult. It has not been done before, but it has to be done. And this is the right moment to do it. And excellence because, again, we can't mince words about the needs of today's life, today's economy, today's reality. We've got to be clear about it. I like to say, because I believe it's fundamentally true, that education determines economic destiny today more than at any other point in human history. I remind so many people in the room who are, give or take my age, that when we were growing up, we knew plenty of people who got a high school degree and went into a good-paying job. That was the nature of our society and our economy. That's not true anymore. There are people who will only have a high school degree and will still succeed. Don't get me wrong. But by and large, if you want to truly succeed in today's economy, you need to go on to some form of further training and higher education. And the only way that works is if we hold a standard of excellence throughout our school system and make our high school diplomas truly count. That is the audacity of the vision. But it's not utopian because it's so necessary. It's literally acknowledgement of the lives we're leading today and what we owe our children, and then working from that acknowledgement backwards to figure out all of the things we would have to do to get this right. Now, I want to be very blunt about the reality that we've lived with, and this is a wonderfully bipartisan statement because we've had Democratic administrations, Republican administrations, independent administrations in this city, and obviously different federal administrations, but we still haven't gotten it right. When I came into office, just about 30% of our kids in New York City public schools were reading on grade level by third grade. 30%, less than a third. And that had been the norm for a long time, in fact, even lower. And it meant that we hadn't achieved the first measure of success. And we hadn't achieved it for a long, long time. And we were putting kids into a hole that they had to then dig out of. Now, the important point here is to understand that so many educators will tell you, if you're reading on grade level by third grade, the pathway is open for continued success. If you're not, you're already working against a deficit. Let me give you a simple quote from Arne Duncan, our former federal education secretary. He said, quote, "If we can have our babies in kindergarten ready to learn and ready to read and be at grade level by third grade, then we can really, truly start to talk about every child going on to college or some form of higher education." This is the standard we have to hold. Some have said it is a very audacious, possibly impossible goal to get all our kids to reading level by third grade. I say it is a necessary goal. I say we have to move heaven and earth. We have to try things we've never tried before. We have to go much farther. We have given ourselves 10 years. And since we started this initiative, we have seen progress already, which I'll delineate. But we said, and this was a long and challenging series of conversations within our administration, within Department of Education, what's it going to take? If that is the standard that will determine a truly great school system and success for the maximum number of our children, and it has to be in every school in every neighborhood, what will it take? And we found quickly that there were 3 building blocks to achieving this very audacious goal. The first was something that had eluded us for decades and decades, a consistent universal commitment to early childhood education. And that is something that was a necessary foundation without which we couldn't really make progress. We had to get to pre-K for all, or we were kidding ourselves. If we didn't create that universal strong foundation with high academic standards, nothing else would be possible when it came to these bigger goals. Then we had to ensure that our teachers were improving all the time. And I want to emphasize this, improving all the time. Teaching is a profession, an extraordinarily noble profession that requires constant work. And teachers want that challenge, they want that support, they want that chance to develop. So one of the things we added into the last teacher contract was a consistent, regular commitment to professional development. 80 minutes of professional development a week for every teacher in every school citywide. In other words, we took away any notion of some making themselves better and better all the time and others not. We said this is a citywide standard, it's a mandate for all. If we're going to achieve equity, every teacher had to be working on their skills all the time, and we had to support them in that. Third, if we're serious about literacy, we're serious about all our kids reading on grade level by third grade, we had to provide a whole new generation of specialists who would go into our schools, focus on reading and literacy, work with the teachers to make sure all of their approaches were the best they could be, work with individual students. So we developed a generation of reading coaches that would be available kindergarten, first grade, second grade to set up our success in third grade. And those coaches are starting now to do their work in schools across the city. And by the 2018-19 school year, there will be reading coaches available to every school in this city on our quest to get all our kids to reading level by third grade. Those three key approaches, those three strategies, none of which had been done before in this comprehensive manner. We know we never had pre-K for all before. We know we never had professional development in this kind of systematic way before. And we certainly know we've never put reading specialists into all the schools that needed them. We believe this will turn the tide. Very difficult mission, but we believe we now have the tools to achieve it systematically over the next decade. Now, you should ask the question, obviously, do we have any proof of success so far? And the last round of test scores told us a lot, because we saw third graders excel just from some of the initial contributions that are being made to their education. Third graders had the biggest jump of any grade on English state tests. When we came into office, as I said, we started below 30%. In the last round of tests, we had 41% of our kids reading on grade level for third grade, an 11% improvement. And I remind you, it's not talked about a lot in our public discourse, but New York State, after lots of work and certainly lots of debate, New York State now has some of the highest education standards of any state in the country, which is right, which is as it should be. So these kids are performing against some of the very highest standards. That 11% progress says to us that all things are possible. And we're going to have to keep the progress going at a very rapid clip. But we know it can be done, and we know it is foundational to all the other changes. Remember, the notion is get kids reading on grade level by third grade to set up all the other success ahead. So it's one building block after another. Think of pre-K as the first building block. Think of third grade literacy as the next as we build this larger structure for success. Here's another example. A lot of people, a lot of parents have pointed out that middle school is a time of particular challenge for kids. And it's a time where we often lose kids. We lose them academically. Sometimes we lose them to dangers that surround them in their communities, and they get caught up in the wrong kind of life. We've not only have to pull kids to the right path, we have to keep showing them they can succeed. I guarantee you one of the things that motivates the most is a sense in each child of personal success that generates hope and purpose. The reason China, seventh grader I mentioned earlier, the reason China keeps moving forward is that she already has become convinced that she can succeed. This is something we have to do with every child. We have to reach them with that same kind of reinforcement that gives them a belief in themselves. So when we get to middle school, one of the things we've done and we're very proud of is we've made a universal commitment to after-school programs for every middle school child. And it doesn't get a lot of headlines, but here's a striking number. There are 115,000 middle school kids right now in New York City who go to an after-school program every day, who get enrichment, who get tutoring, who get arts and culture and recreation. They get 3 more hours effectively tacked on to their school day. 115,000 students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And it's making a huge difference in their lives. That's a doubling of the number of kids who are taking advantage of after school compared to just a few years ago. And we've set a standard that we believe will change the intellectual and academic trajectory for so many of our kids. By the way, this is one of the least popular elements of equity and excellence among our young people. It is our commitment to algebra. Show of hands, I just want to test how many people in the room really loved taking algebra. Raise your hand if you loved taking algebra. There's a certain number of people lying in this room. Can we have a polygraph booth after to test that? Well, we know, and the research shows, that students who pass algebra by 9th grade have a much greater chance of being on a pathway to college. And those who don't pass algebra by 9th grade, it very much mirrors what we've learned with reading by 3rd grade. If you haven't passed algebra by 9th grade, you're being held back in one way or another in terms of your growth. So we've made very clear our standard is that every student completes algebra no later than 9th grade. Some could do it earlier, but no later than 9th grade. And we believe it's one of the things that will change the trajectory for a lot of our students, and it fits beautifully considering the realities of our society and our economy, and certainly considering where jobs are going in our economy. It fits beautifully with our Computer Science for All initiative. We want more and more kids to feel comfortable with their skills around math. We want more and more kids to get exposed and feel comfortable with computer science. And that's why Computer Science for All is so crucial. This is an extraordinarily audacious goal, but it's the right goal, and it's creating amazing excitement among parents and students and a lot of our employers as well. Computer Science for All is a very simple concept. And I want to thank Fred Wilson, who's been the great spark plug for so much of the progress we've made. Public-private partnership that says we're going to reach every child through elementary school, middle school, high school. Computer science education will become a part of their curriculum, not just through computer science courses, but it will be integrated into their math courses, their English courses, everything they do. And I was up at a school in the Bronx, and I saw young people. Well, officially I was assigned to be a partner with a 9th grader in a project she was working on. She turned out to have to explain everything to me, and she was very patient, by the way. And watching her facility in the work she was doing in computer science, watching her sense of self and her belief, her name was Amaya, and she believed that she had already mastered the fundamentals and was well on her way. And I turned to her and I said, you know, we have a thriving technology sector in this city. You know that this is a sector now accounting for over 300,000 jobs. Here's a great statistic. Just from 2007 to 2014, the technology sector and employment in the technology sector in the city grew by 57%, and it's growing even more. So I turned to Amaya and I said, you know, this could be a great career for you. And she smiled as if the thought had already occurred to her. And it was clear to me, this is a young girl in the South Bronx who already has the tools developing, who already has the confidence. The fact that computer science is in her school has empowered her in every sense. and I could see her as a leader of our tech sector in this city going forward. This is what we have to develop in all of our children. Finally, I want to talk about college, because I talked about early childhood, I talked about third grade, middle school. Now let me take you to the ultimate goal. Every school needs a college-going culture. As simple as that. I don't care where the school is, what its history is. We want to leave the past behind. In the video, we talk about shaking the foundations. That's our way of saying we do not accept the ground rules of the past. We do not accept the notion that there are schools that are not going to turn out kids college ready. Again, immense task ahead. But let's make it very simple. You give kids a sense of their goals and their possibilities if you actually expose them to the goal. So one of the new elements of equity and excellence is that every child at the middle school level will go for free to a New York City institution of higher learning for a tour. Very simple thing. If you're in middle school in New York City Public School, you're going to be taken on a tour of a college. You're going to be told this is the kind of place that you belong if you do the work. And this is for you. It's not just for people who you think are other than you, it's for you as well. And then every high school student will have an individualized college or career plan, and we're putting a lot more resources into the guidance counseling and other supports necessary to get them that. Let's face it, a kid who is privileged has a lot of voices in their lives, their parents and so many others, helping them work out their plan. Where to apply for college, how to prepare for tests, how to write an essay. Every kid deserves that support, including kids from families that don't have a single member who has gone to college. Every kid needs maximum opportunity to succeed. That's why in junior year of high school, we'll now provide free SAT tests in the classroom during the school day, so there's no barrier to entry. Any child that wants to take the SAT has an automatic opportunity to take it. And for CUNY, and I want to thank CUNY for the great partnership, for tens of thousands of kids, we're waiving the application fee to CUNY. And one last point, and this gets to both equity and excellence, advanced placement courses. This is such a trigger, it's such a message. Advanced placement courses. If you go to school with advanced placement courses, it communicates to you the kids in that school are expecting to go to college. It communicates that the school has excellence in its DNA. I don't think it'll shock you, even though it isn't talked about a lot, I don't think it'll shock you to know that there's been many high schools in this city that have not had a single AP course. And then there's others, of course, that have thriving AP programs. So the kids that walk in the door, the ones with the AP programs, know that they're college bound. And the kids that walk in the door of a high school every day with no advanced placement are getting a really clear subliminal message: college is not for you. We are changing that. By the 2021-22 school year, every high school in New York City will have 5 AP courses available for every child who's ready and wants to take it to the higher level. That's going to make a difference. Every child will get a message. Work hard, focus, we'll support you, and you can even be reaching college level work while in high school. So, to wrap it together, I want to go back to the story of China. Part of why I walked China to school was that she is in District 23 in Brooklyn. As I mentioned, includes Brownsville, one of the poorest communities in New York City. District 23 and District 7 in the Bronx, much of the South Bronx, also one of the poorest areas in the city, one of the poorest areas in the country. These two districts are the beginning of a new initiative we call Single Shepherd. And when China was walking to school, she was walking with Charlene and I, she was walking with her mom, but she was also walking with a young woman named Rashida Seeley. And Rashida is one of the first generation of these Single Shepherds. They're super guidance counselors, they're life coaches. They're there not only to support the student, but to support the family in the efforts to support the student. A Single Shepherd will spend time with the family in their own home, in their own apartment, working with them on what their child needs to succeed. And here's the amazing part. The Single Shepherd program will take the same individual, in this case Rashida, will work with China and her family now, starting in 7th grade. The program starts in 6th grade, China's going to 7th grade. And Rashida will be working with China and her family in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and she'll be there on the day China graduates high school. A single support throughout that extraordinary sweep of a child's life through middle school and high school. The same person will support that child and that family in an intensive manner throughout. We're talking about 2 of the school districts that have been most left behind. But we won't leave them behind. We're going to do things that haven't been done before to reach those kids and to support their families in ways that we think will foundationally change the trajectory. And by the way, it's offense and defense. It's defense because we all know, again, some kids go astray. Some kids are tempted by the wrong things. Some kids let so many challenges they face overwhelm them. We have to support the child and we have to give them that shield. But it's offense too, because it sends a message. We're investing in you. We believe in you. We believe you can make it all the way, so we're going to be with you every step of the way. The Single Shepherd program, although only now in 2 school districts, we believe could be one of the big difference makers. This is a different approach, and it's an epitome of what we're trying to do with equity and excellence. Recast the whole equation in favor of fairness and in favor of higher standards. And I'll end with the point that although public education over the years has taken its lumps, we should be proud. We should be proud, and so many people in this room have contributed in so many ways. We should be proud of the journey that we have taken and how far we've come. Not so long ago in this city, our graduation rate hovered around 50%. And for years and years, this was one of the most damning realities about New York City public schools. In the last year, for the first time in our history, our graduation rate surpassed 70%. An amazing indicator of progress. We have set a goal of 80% over the next 10 years, which is currently the national average. We believe our schools can do what schools anywhere can do, and we believe ultimately our schools can do even better, because we have the talent of this whole city. We have all the resources you bring to bear. We have an entire civic community deeply, deeply committed to education. So the sky's the limit. We've shown we could take the graduation rate up to places we've never been before. We've shown we could take test scores up to places we've never been before. We've shown that we can make schools safe. And I want to credit my predecessor, Michael Bloomberg, for the great efforts of his administration in this vein, and we have added to it as well. There's been a 35% drop in major crimes in schools in the last 5 years. Extraordinary effort by school safety and the NYPD working with the DOE. These are big and fast changes, and we intend many more. I'll finish with the note that I had the honor of being here before ABNY 4 years ago. I offered an audacious idea. Many good people said they liked the goal, but they did not believe it was possible. At that moment, the day I spoke to you, October 4th, 2012, we had about 20,000 kids in full-day pre-K in New York City. And I stood before you and said we were going to change that. It was going to become truly universal. This morning in New York City, 71,000 kids went to full-day pre-K. More kids went to pre-K classrooms this morning in New York City than all public school students went to school in Boston or went to school in San Francisco. That is what we can do in a place like New York. That's how audacious we are. That's how able this city is when we set our minds to something. So I ask that we all set our minds on equity and excellence for all, because it's a goal that is as good as New York and represents all that we truly value. Thank you.